All right, so good morning, everyone. I am Mark Lewis, CEO of POISE Foundation, and I would like to welcome you to our second in a series of webinars designed to bring financial education to our partners. Our first webinar discussed the implications of the tax bill passed in 2025 and the impact it has had on us as individuals as well as business owners. For this webinar, we're excited to talk about planned giving. Planned giving both from a charitable perspective, but also how you can implement it as a tax strategy. At POISE Foundation, we partner with a variety of donors who have established charitable vehicles known as endowment funds, as well as donors who support those funds. Most people who establish these funds are doing it out of either their income or assets that have been accumulating over the years. With the right level of planned giving strategies, you can actually maximize your gifting and shift certain funds you would have paid directly to the government to support the issues and organizations that you choose. In other words, not different money, but just a different destination. A few weeks ago, the annual Giving USA report was released, and it indicated that over $617 billion donated to charity in 2025 by individuals, foundations, and corporations. This was a 4.5% increase over 2024 donations. The highest percentage of donations continues to be from individuals. In 2025, it was 74% of all charitable giving was by individuals. However, the way individuals are giving is changing. While direct donations from individuals grew slightly, somewhere around 4%, there was a 20% increase in bequests between 2024 and 2025. We are entering the time period of the greatest wealth transfer in the history of this country, as baby boomers have retired and are beginning to transfer their wealth. Without proper planned giving, we can see a lot of that wealth consumed by taxes, attorney's fees, and other costs. This is why this conversation about planned giving is so important right now. Today, we are excited to have with us two wealth managers who share their views and experience with planned giving strategies. Orlando Houston is the managing partner of Ohana Wealth Legacy, and Bilal Afolabi, founder of Chosen Advisory Group. These are two well-accomplished and dynamic men and just happen to be members of the greatest fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, but I'm not biased at all. I am not going to read their bios
Uh-oh.
not going to read their bios today, but we will put those in the chat because I want to jump right into the conversation. They can share information about themselves as they choose. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Orlando to kick us off.
Yep. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate the introduction and thank you for allowing us to give this presentation today. Like you mentioned, that there's a huge wealth transfer, trillions of dollars over the course of the next 15, 20 years. So we're in a unique situation that probably, I guess after 15 to 20 years won't happen again, because a lot of those, the trillions of dollars coming from baby boomers. So as advisors, we like to come up with different ways for our clients to create a legacy for themselves and for their families. So I think that this is timely that we're having this conversation. So also, we are a member of Cap Alpha Psi, so I just want to throw that out there again. But yeah, so we'll definitely get into it, and I'm glad that I'm able to partner with Bilal as well to have this discussion with you all. So hopefully you get a lot out of it today. If you have any questions, please let us know. So I've been in the financial services industry for 15 years, and planned giving has pretty much always been a part of the conversations that I've had with clients. Most times, older clients at some point, and POISE is a great foundation to place those dollars, and Mark does a great job. So, hit on a few topics. First is what is planned giving? And I think we should start there. And planned giving is a charitable contribution that's arranged as a part of a person's financial estate, legacy, or plan. There's various ways that you can give, donations, and Bilal will get into those shortly. So I'm not going to steal his thunder to go over those. But planned giving allows donors to make a large impact that might not be possible through annual donations alone. Because if with anything in life, you have to be intentional, with it. And if you have a systematic plan of how you want to um, contribute, donate to charity of your choice, such as POISE, versus just throwing a certain amount of money at it every single year, then it will have a greater impact. Now, I'm sure that you, like myself, if you listen to the radio or on TV, you always see or hear organizations that are having campaigns, for people to give donations. So it's one of the things that I think that everybody should do. And if you're not doing it, it's something that you want to make sure at least that you talk to your advisor about. Why plan giving matters. Nonprofits depend on long-term support, such as POISE. Plan gifts helps organizations sustain programs during economic uncertainty. If you look back in 2019, right, where COVID happened, a lot of, the world pretty much stopped, right? So organizations may not been able to raise money the ways that they had been able to raise money in the past. So by you giving your donation, this helps the vitality of these organizations for years to come. It also expands services to meet growing community needs. It invests in the future for innovation and growth, and builds permanent funding sources. So that way, organizations that need this money aren't always, as I like to say, shooting from the hip every single year, going out, doing campaigns, because now they have yourself or somebody else that has been pretty intentional about systematically donating money. And as a result of that, the organization can focus their mission instead of constantly worried about funding, like I just said, kind of shooting from the proverbial hip. So definitely very important. So if we look at it from the impact of the immediate impact on the community, because basically, that's the function of a lot of organizations is for the community, whatever community that they serve. So your legacy creates opportunities not tomorrow, but today, right? So plain giving helps nonprofits, depending on what type of nonprofit it is, to feed their family in need, support educational programs, strengthen healthcare initiatives that they may have. If the organization provides housing, that's important as well, can help with that, funding community development. So every gift definitely helps. And a lot of times, people, they think that they have to have a huge amount of money, right, to be able to give to these nonprofit organizations. You really don't. If you like, just to go back to, whenever I talked about hearing these organizations ask for money, whether it's on TV or on the radio, they say, hey, if you can give $1, right? If you give $5, if you give $10, so it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but if you multiply your dollar or to other people's that you don't know, then that continuously adds up. So that small that dollar, that 5, 10, 15,000, whatever it is, right, it is definitely going to add up. But like I said earlier, instead of just giving a donation every single year, or maybe missing some years, have an actual plan for it. And there's also ripple effects of your generosity or of your donations. So for example, the ripple effect that can affect years. So one of your, $1 that you give, $5 that you give, whatever it is, can create a scholarship fund that helps a student attend college. And then that student now graduates, earns a degree, and has a successful career. And that individual supports their family and the community, right? So if you play it out, that one person that you're helping has a huge impact. And a lot of times people that are recipients of the donations from this organization, they like to pay it forward. So they come back to the organization to help out. And that also allows them to contribute or to donate to that organization that helped them out as well. So one donor can change many lives. And your values can live on. You can create a lasting legacy. Plain givings allows people to pass on compassion, leadership, service, faith, community commitment, community involvement. And these causes, what they say is that the cause mattered to me and I want them to matter. I want this cause to matter to generations to come. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bilal to talk about the types of ways that you can give monetarily and non-monetarily.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Mark, thank you so much for inviting us to be here. Orlando, great start. It's always great to see you and see everyone here. But we all know the fundamental purpose is achievement in every field of human endeavor and ultimately to inspire service and public interest. So when I think about this journey into financial planning, oftentimes I like to just start from where it started for me. So I was born in a small country in West Africa called Togo. My mother's from Ghana, my father's from Nigeria. And when I was born, my father physically wasn't there because he's traveling the world to find a better home for us, to just create opportunities for his children. And when I was 8 years old is when I got the call to move to the United States. And the reason why I want to start there is because this is all going to tie into charitable giving and the impacts of the work that we're doing, as Orlando clearly stated as an immigrant in this country and having an opportunity where if you do work extremely hard and with some luck, of course, but with great guidance and great mentors and people pouring into you, you can create something ultimately. And for me, what I realized that my calling, what my passion is in life is really financial planning. Growing up back home in Togo, Africa, every single night we had dinner together around a fire pit and we tell stories. And in African culture, we have what's known as a griot, and the griot is a storyteller. And I've always resonated with whoever the griot was for the night. And then in college, I majored in finance. So ultimately, I got a chance to put storytelling with financial planning and put it together. And that's how you become a financial advisor. On my journey, I ended up starting this wealth management firm. This is year 14, called Chosen Advisor Group. And the reason why we call it chosen is because most of the clients that we work with, oftentimes they're the most successful people in their families. And that come with the unique responsibilities. Oftentimes they're hearing, I'm the first Black person to do this. I'm the second. It's very limited folks that are achieving these high levels of success. But the common thread with all these individuals is this idea of giving back. So this is really important to me. And again, Mark, thank you so much for inviting me to be here today to have this conversation. Oftentimes, when we think about giving, most of the vehicles that we all give is cash. And our goal today is how can we enhance the strategy? Because the objective isn't necessarily just to give money, but is there a way for us to give more without necessarily giving more? And I love how the first series event you guys had was around the taxes and the one big beautiful act that got passed recently, because it's all around us. If there's a way for us to take the same dollar and stretch it to do much more, that's what we want. So even from a cash perspective, when we're giving money, if you work for a company, many employers offer employer matching. And if they do not offer employer matching, that is something you could feel confident to bring up. They want to find a way to match the employees to give because studies shows that when the employees are given to causes and their employers are supporting it, it makes them want to stay. And businesses don't want turnover. If they like their talent, they want to keep their talent. So whenever you give cash, whenever POISE reaches out or any other charity reaches out to say, hey, we're raising money for X, Y, and Z reason, when you're giving your cash, ask your employer if they actually match that organization. Sometimes it's 100%, sometimes it's even more. So let's certainly go ahead and do that. Another form of giving that I'm not sure a lot of people consider all the time is if you're fortunate enough to be a part of a company that gives you equity compensation. What I'm referring to is employer stock purchase program, ESPPs, restricted stock units, RSUs, or ISOs, incentive stock options. If your employer gives you equity, part of your compensation, that is something to consider. Or if you invest money in your investment account, your brokerage account, and it grows, and you have a growth in that account, it's called appreciated securities. That is something to consider giving. I have a story on that. I'm going to circle back and make sure I tell that today. You could give from retirement accounts. We just mentioned that most of the giving that's been increasing over these past several years are coming from people that, hey, when they pass away, they're leaving money to the next generation. The wealth transfer that's occurring. Some accounts to consider are the retirement ones, specifically a 401k, a 403b, a 457, or IRA. So those are four different accounts I just mentioned. The key differentiator maker is that there's two words that confuses everyone. They are traditional and Roth. Traditional and Roth. Essentially, you can have a traditional 401k, 403b, 457 IRA. You could also have a Roth, 401k, 403b, 457 IRA. When there's eight different options, it confuses people. At the core of it, the big difference is traditional says when I contribute money into this account today, I get a tax deduction. When it's growing, I pay no taxes. But when I'm retired and I'm taking money out of this account, I am paying income taxes on that money. Also, with the traditional account, when I pass away, because there are four phases of taxation: the contribution, the growth, the distribution, and the fourth one that we often forget is the transfer. When you transfer that money to the next generation, the traditional account is also taxable as income to your children. That makes it a great vehicle for the simple fact that now you could get a tax deduction when you contribute money. You could spend money when you're alive, but then when you pass away, it's one of the assets that if it's deciding between do I give this to charity or my children, giving that traditional vehicle to charity does not create a taxable event, but it will create a taxable event for your children. So sometimes people say, I'll leave this money to my children and they could donate it. Well, they just pay taxes on that money. So now there's only fewer dollars there that they could then give to charity. So something to consider. The other one to consider is the biggest one. I think it's the best way to leave legacy. The best way to create wealth in this country is a big bag of cash that's completely tax-free. What I'm referring to is life insurance. It's essentially a way for you to get a boatload of money for pennies on the dollar. Charities will allow you to say, hey, I will take a life insurance policy out on me, next of kin, or anyone, pay the premiums for it. The premium will allow you to get a tax deduction today because you're donating money. Upon passing, the charity receives a lump sum of money completely tax-free. It's a big way to create wealth. You could also, of course, give money through wills and trusts. For the sake of today, I won't dive too much into that. You could donate real estate, so your primary residence, a vacation home, that's also available to you. Strategically, there was what's known as a donor advice fund, DAF. I have a story on that as well, so I'll come back to talk through that. We've also have some more strategic things such as CRATs, charitable remainder annuity trusts, and GRUTs. We don't need to go too deep into that one today. But just know that there's some strategic ways to give. And of course, there are some non-traditional ways to give as well. So, Orlando, I'm going to pass it to you to discuss some of those non-traditional ways of giving.
Sure. Thanks, Bilal.
Yes.
So some of the non-traditional ways to give are cars, right? So, yeah, if you have a used car that you don't need, I mean, I don't know how many of us have a car that we don't need, with the prices of everything nowadays. But it's simply something that we don't think about, right? You have an old used car, or maybe you have a antique car, that you want to give to charity. So, you may not be the person that has a certain amount of dollars, right? And that you can donate, or maybe it's not through your investments, right? But you do have something, or it could be furniture. Or it could be furniture. It could be, like Bilal mentioned, real estate. So if you have properties, investment properties that you want to donate to a charity, the charity would be more than happy to take that, and they will be able to, maybe liquidate that to cash, and they can put that into a fund that can help out their mission. Another one that is not material is your time, right? Just servicing, volunteering, kind of putting your hands on the rope, if you will. I'm sure POISE would be happy, to have somebody volunteer their time, other nonprofit organizations, because that shows your commitment. But also, these organizations are out in the community, so it could be a toy drive. It could be giving food away. It could be, just a lot of other things. And also for your kids, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but that also helps as well. Volunteering, right? We talk about resume builders. That I know my son needs, for college, his college resume. So that's another way too to get the family involved, which we'll I'll talk about here in a little bit. So those are some other ways that you can help. And maybe some of these organizations, or smaller nonprofit organizations that may be able to benefit from your professional expertise, like accounting. You just never know, what these organizations need unless you ask. So those are some ways that you can donate without it being something that's material, usually out of the range of what people typically think that they're able to donate. So I'll turn over to Bilal to share a story.
Yeah, excellent. That is so important. I think the time component is massive. I think a lot of things that I benefited from in life is people putting their hard time and investing into me. Allow me as a young man to spend some time and ask questions and being curious and them being there to be able to educate me and guide me along my path. And it's not only from a business sense, but also just a personal life perspective. So that's another great way of giving. This one happened recently. This is a 72-year-old client of mine. She's done phenomenal. She's interested. She's also an immigrant in this country. She's from Jamaica, climbed the corporate ladder, did really well for herself. And she knows that in her mind, and what's really important to her is that she wants to be able to pay it forward. She and her husband did a phenomenal job of raising great children, and they're in a really good financial position where they actually, between Social Security and their pensions, they're okay from a livelihood standpoint. In addition to that, they participated in the employee retirement plans all the way through. They contribute to their 401k when working. The employer also matched them. So now they're sitting in a really, really good spot. Well, this lady is 72 years old. One of the things that you realize once you get to your 70s, if you have money inside these traditional accounts, you take it from the employer plan. So the employer plan is anything with the number 4. So 401k, 403b, 457, that's employer. And you move it to your individual plan, IRA. When you move that, no tax implications, that's fine. But what now has to happen depending on your age, 73 or 75, is you are now required to take the money out of these traditional accounts, even if you don't need it, simply so they could tax you. Hear that? You got to take money out of your account that you've contributed money into, and it's growing. You don't need the money. But now they're going to force you to take the money out simply so they could tax you. And every single year, it's a math. They take the total balance you have divided by a number. And every single year, that number gets higher because actuarially, they say you're getting closer. I don't have to say it. But what happens is now you're taking out more and more money to get taxed. And the crazy thing about it is if you don't do that, if you don't take the money, there's a hefty penalty. And not only are you being taxed now, but you leave that money to your children, they're also going to be taxed. So now in this scenario, the 72-year-old lady, she doesn't have to start taking her requirement of distributions yet until she's 73. But there's what's known as a QCD, Qualified Charitable Distribution. So what does that mean? So in this scenario, her required distribution next year is going to be $45,000. She says, okay. So Bilal will take out the $45,000. She's going to give money to her church. She's also going to give money to a couple organizations that's important to her. So in her mind, I'm going to take out $45,000, pay taxes on this, and then give it to charity. And we said, no. One, you don't have to until next year, but the QCD actually allows you to start doing this as early as 70 and a half. So you're eligible to do this today. So now instead of her taking $45,000 from her IRA, paying taxes, and then donating the remaining amount, what we end up doing is that we took the money directly out of the IRA and send that directly to the charity. So what's the result of that? The full $45,000 went straight to the charity. There was no requirement that was missed. The charity received the full amount. No tax went away out of that. And that $45,000 never showed up as income to her, which now also reduced all the other impacts because we know in retirement, those Medicare premium surcharges and Social Security taxations are very, very important. It's a ripple effect whenever that happens. So now this is exactly what she wanted all along. She wants to give, but she wants to do it in a more efficient way. So there's so many individuals out there that are giving money, but it's not planned. And that's exactly why this webinar exists today, to make sure that people are considering, yes, I'm giving, but is this the most effective way for me to give money today? So just figure out share that story, because I'm not sure if that's someone else in this audience today who's giving money out of their IRA first and then give it to charity, because it could simply be solved by you giving the money directly to the charity. So, and I think Orlando, I think there's more that we wanted to discuss as well. And I'll share that over to you in terms of, well, if you give this money, then I think creating some legacy and having other people understand the why. So I turn this back to you.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Bilal. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very important. I'm glad you shared that story. I mean, I know I have a lot of clients that are in that situation, and like Bilal mentioned, there's a lot of people on this call, right, that are at a certain age, and you're thinking about RMDs, or sometimes people don't even know they have to take out RMDs from their retirement plans. But if you don't necessarily need all the money, right, this is a great way to give, and that's more paying it forward and supporting the communities that we serve every single day. So, choosing the right nonprofit for your legacy is important. And you want to consider, what nonprofit, organization aligns with my goals, right? And also, not just your goals, your family goals. So, your charitable legacy is more than a donation. And when you make a planned gift, you're not simply transferring assets. You're passing on your values. You're passing on your mission. You're passing on the commitment to improving lives and also your family's philanthropic traditions. And I think, I can't say I think, I know, and I don't want to paint a broad or use a broad brush, but I know in our community, playing giving isn't something that we always think about, and more or less from a family standpoint. And when you think about from a family standpoint, and you think about ways to pass it on to generations, pass values on, and like Bilal mentioned, when he was growing up and they had dinner at the table all the time, just it was a more of a family oriented. It's a great time to talk about playing giving, how to be philanthropic from a family standpoint, and a gift that extends beyond the grave. So the question isn't how much should I give? It's really where can my gift have the greatest impact, right? So if you're a recipient of scholarship, or you're in a certain community that can use help, that's the greatest impact, right? So we see charities on TV, we hear about them, but when you go through your mental Rolodex of where that dollar can create the greatest impact and what means to you, it's important. That's what you think about. You can also think about what causes have shaped my life, right? And there's some causes maybe that you don't even know have shaped your life. If you think back to your youth of community-based programs, whether it's free lunch, I know I was a recipient of free lunch when I was younger, and it was good, but I had no idea back then that free lunch was from the Hell House Association, right? So these were things that, even in my mind, as I start to think back to my youth, all the way back, how I was a recipient of these programs, these nonprofit programs, and POISE may have been the contributor to that as well. Also, ask yourself, what challenges in my community concern me most, right? Like, what's the most important to me, and what impact do I want to have after I'm gone? So, right, that's like creating a legacy. And what would you like your family to remember about you? Because that's important. Of course, we're here, we're working, we're making an impact right now. But for a lot of us, it comes down to my legacy, right? How do I want to be remembered? Because it's just that morbid conversation we don't want to have, right? But this is more the legacy, and this kind of keeps it going. Some common areas of interest can be education, healthcare, faith-based organizations, right? Your church, arts and culture, community development, human services, as well. So, one of the other things you want to do is just evaluate the organization's mission, right? Is the inspiration, or is the mission from the organization clear to you? Does the organization address a real need? And are his goals measurable, and does the work align with their family values? One other thing you want to do from the community impact is just look beyond the good intentions. Who benefits from their programs? right? Who are the recipients of those? What results are being achieved? And how many lives are impacted from the organization. And impact definitely matters. The most successful nonprofits can clearly demonstrate how donations create positive change, and that that's why we're here today. I mean, POISE is a great organization, and then Mark for a number of years, and it just it would be great if more organizations did this. But kudos to Mark for taking the lead on this, taking the helm, and having these, and kind of bringing the message to the people, instead of you having to hear about it through the grapevine. So I'll turn it back over to Bilal for another story.
Orlando, thank you as well. For this one, this is actually two different stories I wanted to share. This was a couple that I met a couple of years ago, and for them, they pay their tithes every single month, and it's really important to them. In addition to that, they have two kids in private school. And what they experience is that the cost of private school isn't just the tuition, is because the private schools also raise money. So they invite you to all these dinners and you're there. And of course, it's all to raise money. And all along, when they go, they realize that, well, okay, we give to our church, we give to our children's private school outside of their tuition. And then we also have other causes that are important to us. All along, what they've been doing is they've been giving cash every single year. The interesting thing is they're married filing jointly, so they get a standard deduction. So let's get a little bit more technical, but from a tax perspective, there's a way to take a standard deduction or for a way for you to itemize. Standard deduction gives you a limit. If you go above that limit, it makes sense to itemize because you end up paying less in taxes. Well, this individual, this couple, they were taking the standard deduction, but they weren't giving enough to start itemizing. So what they realized is that from a tax perspective, it's important to give, but they had another opportunity that was available to them. They've done a really good job of saving money. They actually had invested years ago in NVIDIA. So now the value of NVIDIA, they invested 40 grand, they had close to $150,000 in NVIDIA. And when we're having our conversations, they're saying, hey, I'm not sure if I want to hold on to this. This is a lot of money. We put in 40, we're at 150, and we're nervous to sell it because if we sell now, we're going to have to pay capital gain taxes on this money. And we don't want to experience a tax hit either, but we're stuck. What else could we do? So for this couple, what we end up creating for them is a donor advice fund. Essentially, the strategy there is, hey, Mr. and Mrs., is there for us, what if we could find you a way to give more money without giving away more money? It's like, what do you mean? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to transfer your ownership of NVIDIA. We're going to open up what's known as a donor advice fund. We're going to transfer $150,000 over to this donor advice fund. Now, what's going to happen now is the IRS is going to say, oh my God, you guys just donated $150,000 to charity. It says, but Bilal, we only invested 40 grand. So that's the beauty of giving. The beauty of giving is you get to give that appreciated security at fair market value. You invested your 60, you're at 150. You made that $90,000, you no longer have to pay capital gain taxes on. You transfer that to the donor advice fund. You just got a donation credit as if you donated $150,000 that year. You don't have to pay the capital gains on it anymore. It says, okay, but Bilal, I'm not sure if we want to give $150,000 to charity this year. So, well, here's the beauty of it. You don't have to. So now that we move this into your donor advice fund, now we're going to go ahead and diversify from NVIDIA. So now you don't have to own all that money in one single company. So they're able to sell, diversify all their shares. And so how much taxes do we pay for doing that? Zero. Because now the money isn't in your name anymore. It's inside this account that you created for charity. So how much money do you have to give to charity this year? The same amount you intended on giving before. But wait, we still have money in this account. Is it going to grow? Absolutely. So you put $150,000 in this account. You got a donation, you avoided capital gain taxes, and now you don't have the same risk as you had in one company anymore. And now you're giving money to charity out of this account, but that account continues to grow. That is planned giving. This couple was just giving cash all along, not realizing that they could look somewhere else in their balance sheet to be more strategic from a giving perspective. We had another client, and this one was actually yesterday that I was talking to her. She works for this biotech company, and part of her compensation is she get a lot of equity compensation. Part of it, she gets these incentive stock options. She get restricted stock units, so she has a good space salary. But then the rest of her compensation comes from all these stocks. Well, recently this year, a bunch of her stock vested this year. Now, when your stocks vest, it is also taxable to you as income. So now she's going to be in the highest tax bracket this year. Unfortunately, she lost her husband a few years ago. So now she's no longer able to take advantage of married filing jointly. She's now under the single filer, which could impact you from a tax perspective, especially as a high earner. So now what we're going to do strategically for her this year is instead of her giving cash, all that equity vests, we're going to bunch is the name of it. We're going to take a boatload of that money, put that into her donor advice fund as well. She's going to get a tax deduction. It's a great way for her to reduce her tax liability in 2026. For her, it was 100,000 that she's going to put into this account. And that 100,000, let's say earn 6% this year or the next year, that's $6,000. That's extra 6,000 she could give to charity, not coming out of her pocket. So that's another way where a client recently was able to do it. Here's another one where this wasn't necessarily setting up a donor advice fund, but whenever you meet with your financial advisor or planner, if you have one, what you're looking for, the first conversation should be analyzing your tax return from the previous year. Because that tax return, it's like seeing your doctor and getting a CT scan. So you want to understand where you are today from a financial standpoint. That document is going to impact so much more. So then when you see that and you realize that, wait, this person, this isn't that she was filing single, this person, their donation last year wasn't much. There was, unfortunately, took a standard deduction. And you realize that if they only gave $6,000 more, they could bunch all their gifting into 1 year. So from a strategy perspective, she could itemize and pay less taxes. The way she's going to do this now, and all the charities love this, by the way, she's going to call them in December and say, hey, I want to give you the money that I plan on giving you in 2027, but I want to give it to you now. There's no charity in America that's going to say, no, please, no, 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 no. Keep the money. Don't give it to us. Wait until next year. So now she give for 26, and then she's going to give for 27, also in 2026. She didn't set up a donor advice fund, but because she bunched her gifting in 1 year, she's not able to itemize and get a better tax benefit for doing it. This is all ways where it could be more strategic with giving. The first tier is how much going to give cash. But of course, there's more ways you could do it. If you get that employer match, take advantage of it. Depending on where you are in life, there's some strategic ways you can obviously give money. But those are just a few stories of clients literally recently that we met with that were helping them find different ways to strategically give. What I'd love, Mark, is if you could discuss more about POISE Foundation and everything that you guys are doing and how these planned giving strategies that we discussed today could positively impact POISE in the years to come.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, on behalf of everybody here, I'd like to thank both of you for the great presentation and educating us about the benefits and reason why we should all develop a planned giving strategy. I know there was a lot of information that was shared. The purpose of these webinars are not to necessarily you walk out of here with a detailed plan. I think I mentioned earlier, if I didn't, it's important to engage, with someone like these too, because plan giving is based off of your strategy. It's based off of your goals. And so it's an individualized plan that you have to sit down and talk about. But one of the things we want to do is just to make sure that this starts to get you thinking, right, about plan giving and thinking about strategies that, are beyond just reaching out to a donor, and if you're an organization asking for a cash donation, or if you are a donor, simply just giving cash. Because as Bilal mentioned, there are many different strategies that allow you to be able to give and give in a better way and give more, right? Because you're not again, coming out of your pocket for more money. It's shifting, am I giving money to the government or can I give it directly to a cause that I believe in? So for POISE Foundations for over 45 years, and we're a public foundation. And so over those 45 years, the way the foundation works is we work with individuals, organizations to mainly create endowment funds. And endowment funds are funds that you either start with a cash donation or a non-cash donation, as was described earlier, and you set up an endowment fund. And the way the endowment fund works is the money that you give begins to grow over time because we invest that money, pull those resources together, we invest that money, and that money grows over time. A portion of those investments are what we use to make grants back to our community, grants or scholarships. And typically, that's about a 5%, what we call a spending rate or spending policy on the fund balance over an average of a 3-year period. And so every year, that 5% is what we're able to do grant making to organizations or provide scholarships to individuals. And this is based off of the donor's charitable purpose. So the difference between a private foundation, and we've got several large private foundations here, and a public foundation is made up of a lot of different funds that individuals create for their charitable purposes. And so if you create, as Bilal mentioned, if you create a donor advised fund or a DAF, basically you create that fund and then you determine, right, where those funds are going to go as long as it's towards organizations. You can also create scholarship funds and create all different types of criteria on scholarship funds. And so there are about 9 different types of funds that we manage at POISE Foundation, depending on, again, what the donor's charitable purpose is. Obviously, the larger the value of the fund, the more there is available for grant investments in the organizations and students that that we're trying to serve on a yearly basis. This is interesting. Although we live in one of the most philanthropic regions in the country, the Pittsburgh region is usually in the top 5 philanthropic dollars and institutions that do grant making, I'll say per capita, throughout our country. And what's interesting is all the foundation giving, and this may include individual giving as well, that happens in this country, only 3 to 5% of all those donations go to communities of color. Even though we are, and when I say communities of color, I'm not just talking about Black communities, I'm talking about communities of color. Think about that, 3 to 5%, although communities of color probably make up, we're probably reaching that 40 to, somewhere between 40 to 43% of the population. So you compare that to a POISE Foundation where over 90% of our grant making is going to the Black community. For us to be more impactful, we don't need a new focus. We don't need to figure out, how to invest money. We've been doing that for many years. There are a lot of nonprofits we've invested in, more nonprofits that we can invest in, and that's through philanthropy as a whole. But we don't need a new focus. We need to build assets. So if the foundation is going to do well, we need those individuals who believe in our mission and the operations of the foundation to do well. And this is why we're providing these types of webinars and education. POISE does well when our community does well. So this is truly a partnership. And this is also why we want to expose you to qualified financial advisors like the 2 you've heard from this morning. So as you learn more about planned giving and how it can benefit your personal situation, we ask that you also think about partnering with the POISE Foundation and how we together can benefit our community. So at this time, I think what we like to do is open it up to any questions that people might have for our presenters, myself as well. Feel free to either raise a hand or put a question in the chat. But are there any questions from anybody at this point?
Mark, thank you. While those questions are coming in, I wanted to add one more thing. And maybe it was covered in the last webinar, but in case someone did not attend. I know I mentioned a lot about bunching and donor advised fund and QCDs, and sometimes it gets to seem like it's so far away, depending on where you are career-wise. But a big opportunity that's part of the One Big Beautiful Act that got passed is that in 2026, because there's 90% of Americans take the standard deduction. Over 90% of Americans take the standard deduction. But now You could also claim a separate charitable deduction. If you're single, it's up to $1,000. And if you're married filing jointly, it's up to $2,000. So that is a really, really good thing to take advantage of, because the issue before is you'll go and you'll give to charity, but then you also get the standard deduction and you don't actually get a benefit from that from a tax perspective. Again, it's the right thing to do. It's not all about taxes, but because we're talking about plan giving, I think that it's important to mention that. So now up to $1,000 if you're single, or $2,000 if you're married filing jointly, and that's if you're taking the standard deduction. So that is additive, and that is something to consider. Now, that doesn't mean cap your giving at 1,000 or 2,000, but it's something to consider.
Great. Any questions? Feel free to come off mute. All right, I'll kick off just a question I had. So both of you have presented, have shared stories, which I think are great. Why is it important to engage with a financial planner or a financial investment manager versus just, hey, we heard you say it, now we can just jump in and do all these different, use all these different vehicles or tools?
Yep. Yeah. So Mark, I could start. Uh, you know, you can go far by yourself. You can figure out things. You can drive from here to California without a map. It's going to take you longer to get there. But if you have a map, you'll be able to get there quicker, maybe more effectively and efficiently. So we employ people so we can make sure that we're making the right decisions, right? And we're working with a financial advisor like Bilal or myself will help you along the way. So as Bilal had talked about the donor advised funds, the QCDs, RMDs, and different ways to give, and your tax deductions, these are things that people typically maybe haven't heard of. And if you go at it alone, you may just give a bunch of cash and pay more in taxes than what you necessarily have to do. So if you want to save yourself some time and money and do it effectively, I think it's important to reach out to a financial advisor like Bilal and myself.
If I could add to that, I think there's two things to add. Number one is thought partnership. And that is so valuable today. And this goes down to some simple things such as, hey, we're thinking about home renovations or we're thinking about purchasing a new car. What's the best way to go about that? Should I finance it? Should I lease it? Should I pay for it cash? Something that simple, all the way to long-term decisions such as retirement planning or charitable giving and transferring assets. Having a financial soundboard, someone that knows you, your family, and your story that you could go to strategize with, I think is extremely important. So not only are you bringing this up to the table, but they are as well. But I think the second part, and the key reason why a lot of people stay with their advisors once they start working with them and their outcomes are better than those without advisors, is because accountability. I mean, you're going to get things done. It's that simple. You work with an advisor, you have a scheduled check-in, you know that this meeting is coming up, and the objective is to complete X, Y, and Z. We're all busy. We're running a million miles an hour with all the various things that we have going on, but just have a break where you actually sit down with someone that you trust, respect, and like, and for them to make sure you get something done that's going to change the trajectory not only of your life, but ripple effects towards your family and generations to come. So those are reasons to work with an advisor.
And Mark, if I can, just want to go back, unless there's another question or question going up in the chat. We talked about different ways to give. Another thing you can do is have the nonprofit as a beneficiary, right, of your account. So, whether that's one, like Bilal mentioned, your insurance policy, your retirement account, or your will. So these are ways that you can, still give without maybe having to give today.
Perfect. Yeah, I think also, just with the change we saw, a huge shift in the tax code in 2025. Laws are always changing, right? And it's the Congress passes the laws that impact taxes, impact giving, impact all these different things. And so it's extremely hard to stay on top of, all the different changes. And so I think one of the benefits that I've seen with financial investment managers is the fact that it's their job, right, to continually stay on top of what those issues are. And so it would take us, and I don't know if any of you have ever read through some of the laws in Congress that they passed. It is not an easy read, right? And
No.
so it's extremely difficult unless you've been trained to really understand that. But if you're working with, and usually financial advisors that are attached to some of the larger firms, they have people that go through and synthesize that and make sure that it's, understood by the financial advisor. So I think you get that, someone mentioned it earlier, that efficiency, that ability to have that information very quick and have that understanding of the changes that do take place. Another question I had was, I'm sorry, Michael, from Thomas.
Yeah, my question is, Bilal, you mentioned life insurance is a great way to transfer funds without taxes. But when you turn around and look at the cost of the insurance, as a factor, what is the process or decision-making process of determining what level and then the payment based on the payment that you end up having for that life insurance?
Great question, Brother Thomas. It really depends on the individual. I had a client we did this for. She's out of Florida. She works at this, that's irrelevant, but her objective is it's important for her to give to this organization. And she had her budget, and her budget was $3,000 a year. And she said, I want to give 3,000 to this charity, but instead of directly giving that to the charity right away, she took the $3,000, bought whatever life insurance she could possibly get. And she's in her late 40s, so it's whatever she could afford at that point, how much coverage she could get. And it's a permanent policy that does not expire. So the core of life insurance, there's so many types, but there's really two. One is term and one is permanent. Term, you have it for a window of time, 10, 20, 30 years. At the end of the term, it expires. The premium you pay into it, the insurance company keeps it, but you have the protection all along. The alternative is permanent life insurance that lasts as long as you live. So from this perspective, you'd want to consider what is your budget in terms of affordability, what are you comfortable with? And then also decide, hey, do I want to give this $250 a month or $3,000 a year today? Or is it better for me to actually put it inside of a life insurance policy that could give us a larger sum of money if I pass away prematurely, or is always going to be there depending on how long I live? And they'll get very technical and actually run a report and analysis on this to figure out what is the rate of return on the death benefit of the life insurance policy. And oftentimes when you run that rate of return on death benefit specifically, not the cash value, that's irrelevant in the situation, it's a death benefit focus on the death benefit. What we've experienced is that mathematically, depending on insurability, your health class that you get approved for, the rate of return is often greater than we could get somewhere else on your own. So those are the reasons to consider permanent life insurance from a gifting standpoint. In the organization that you donate to, oftentimes they would treat that premium payment as a tax deduction too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Bilal, if I can, I just want to extend that a little bit more because you mentioned RMDs earlier, right? So that's another great way, easy way, if you don't actually need those RMDs for your expenses, to purchase a life insurance policy, because you have to take the money out every single year anyway, right? So if you're able to use those RMD required mandated distributions to purchase a life insurance policy, for whatever needs you have, that's a easy way to make a contribution. Also know what you can afford.
That is so true. This is subjective, and we're trying to be as objective as possible. But if you have the life insurance and then you have the IRA, if you're going to give one, give the IRA to the charity, because your kids are going to inherit it and pay taxes on it, and they're required to take the money out within a certain time frame. Where the life insurance, you're just giving them a big bag of cash that's tax-free. If I'm hearing money from mom, dad, if you're listening, just give me a big bag of cash that's tax-free. Like, that's really all that I care for.
I agree.
Right.
So I have another, hopefully quick question. So as we're talking about talking about plan giving strategies and plan giving and working with financial advisors, this is two-part, is there a certain age range that we should be engaging, as well as is there a certain amount of money that somebody should be thinking about having before they talk to a financial advisor?
So there's no age. I mean, I feel like if you have a purpose, if you want to be involved in the community, you want to give back, you want to pay it forward, you can, start to talk to your kids. Like I mentioned earlier about a generational, kind of family philanthropic, right? That family member doesn't have to be a specific age for you to give, and you can give anything, right? You can give a dollar to pretty much what you can afford. That's what you can do, right? And that $1 is going to pay it for, and that can continue to build up. So there isn't an age, there isn't a minimum amount, at least that I know. I don't know any charity that said, hey, unless you have X amount of dollars, we don't want your money. If you hear of a charity like that, I'm sure that they'll probably be out of business soon enough.
Yep. I have nothing to add to that. That was perfect, Orlando.
No, perfect. So I know we're at time. So again, I want to thank each of you for your participation, your interest, as well as the questions. I want to sincerely thank our presenters, Orlando Houston, again, of Ohana Wealth Management, and Bilal Afolabi of Chosen Advisory Group. Thank you both. I think it was extremely informative. Be on the lookout for communications regarding our upcoming webinars for this fall. We will take a deeper dive into qualified charitable distributions with Elise Yanders from Merrill Lynch, maybe a couple other topics. I did put the bios in the chat, so please grab the bios. We'll also provide those to all the people that participated today as well. So thank you all, and I hope you can join us this fall.
Thank you
Enjoy
for
the rest of your
your time.
day.
Okay, good
Yep.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yo.
Yo.